What if I told you that the person holding you back isn't your boss? It isn't your doubters. It isn't even your circumstances. It's you. More specifically, it's a weaker, softer version of yourself. A version that makes excuses, avoids challenges, and shies away from discomfort. A version that steals your potential to flourish as the person you were meant to be. Today we begin the journey of Stoic self-mastery, the journey to kill, not someone else, but your own weakness, to silence that nagging voice in your head telling you it's okay to quit, or you're not good enough anyway. This video is not for the faint of heart. It's for anyone ready to finally step into responsibility, self-control, and a life of true meaning. Before we dive into the profound teachings of Stoicism that will change your life forever, don't forget to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and click that notification bell. By doing so, you're not only supporting us, but also encouraging us to bring more valuable and eye-opening content. Now, let's begin. The ancient Stoics, Epictetus, Seneca, and Marcus Aurelius, understood one universal truth. Life is not about conquering nations, accumulating wealth, or appeasing society's expectations. Life is about mastering oneself. But self-mastery doesn't happen overnight, and it doesn't happen without recognizing the thousands of self-sabotaging thoughts and behaviors we carry around every day. Who is this weaker version of you? Imagine them for a moment. Maybe it's the part of you that oversleeps, dreads challenges, procrastinates. Maybe it's the part of you that settles for mediocrity because you're scared to fail. Or maybe it's the part that blames others or external circumstances for your situation. It wears many faces, but it always shares one trait. It tries to protect you from discomfort. But in reality, this weak version of yourself is the enemy, and it's keeping you trapped. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." It's a deceptively simple idea. We often spend so much time blaming others or complaining about our hardships. Rarely do we turn inward and ask the uncomfortable question, is the real obstacle me? Let's pause for a moment. Think about today, just today. How many things have you avoided simply because they were challenging? Did you skip that workout? Did you put off finishing that report because it felt too overwhelming? Did you spend hours scrolling through your phone because that was easier than starting that tough task? These choices may seem insignificant, but they accumulate. They build the weaker version of yourself brick by brick. And over time, they construct a wall so high that you can no longer see the stronger version. Stoicism isn't about suppressing emotions and pretending they don't exist. It's about facing your emotions, your fears, your discomfort head-on and mastering them. The Stoic philosopher Seneca reminds us that suffering isn't the result of external hardships. It's our perspective on those hardships. He said, "We suffer more often in imagination than in reality." And where does that suffering in imagination come from? The weak, fearful mind, the one that whispers, "What if?" endlessly. Kill that whisper, tear it apart, because until you do, it will run your life. Stoicism teaches that the path to strength begins with clarity. You cannot kill the weak version of yourself if you don't recognize its voice. It's subtle, it sounds convincing. Just skip this one time. You deserve a break. You're only human. But keep this in mind. Every time you listen to that voice, you give it power. You feed it, nurture it, let it grow stronger, until one day it consumes you. The Stoics believed in the concept of virtue, living in alignment with wisdom, courage, justice, and moderation. These aren't just nice ideas. They're tools to reshape yourself, starting with your thoughts and daily actions. Choosing wisdom means seeking the truth, acknowledging your weaknesses without getting defensive. Choosing courage means leaning into discomfort, rejecting your fear of failure. Justice means taking accountability, not blaming others or circumstances. And moderation means controlling yourself, killing procrastination, killing excuses. Now let me ask you as you listen to this, who is ruling your life, the stronger version or the weaker one? Are you the master, waking up each morning boldly living your values, pushing your limits, and showing up for yourself? Or are you the servant making easy choices and hiding from growth? Here's the hard truth. You can't kill the weaker version of yourself in one day, but you can starve it. Every time you push yourself a little further, every time you choose responsibility over excuses, every time you stand firm in hardship instead of retreating, you weaken it. And after enough days, enough choices, enough struggle, that weaker version can truly die. Building the inner fortress. When we talk about confronting the weak version of yourself, we're not just speaking in metaphors, we're addressing a fundamental reality deep within all of us. That weaker self thrives on excuses, distractions, and comfort. It clings to unhealthy habits and finds every reason not to change. The Stoics believed that this weaker self could be silenced, not through external solutions, not through indulgence, but through the inexorable power of discipline and reason. Marcus Aurelius, one of Stoicism's great torchbearers, reminds us in his Meditations. You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength. This idea isn't just philosophical, it's revolutionary. When we cultivate the power to control our thoughts, the weak self begins to lose its grip. But how do we start building that power? How do we begin constructing the fortress that shields our mind from fear, self-doubt, and the chaos of modern life? The first step is radical acceptance, not passive resignation, but active acknowledgement of what is in your control and what isn't. Epictetus taught that the fundamental distinction of a wise person is knowing what is theirs to influence. Let's be brutally honest. The weaker version of yourself wastes endless energy lamenting over things outside your control. It panics about what others think, it trembles at imagined futures, and it blames outside circumstances for its shortcomings. All of this is noise, and noise, the Stoics say, must be silenced. Imagine for a moment that your life is a ship sailing through turbulent waters. The weaker self will flail against the waves, screaming at the storm, wishing endlessly for it to stop. The Stoic self grabs hold of the rudder. It doesn't necessarily wish for calm, nor does it waste energy cursing the weather. Its focus is singular: steer the ship. It understands the waves are beyond control, but the rudder isn't. And so it steers toward strength, toward composure, toward clarity. But steering requires effort. This is where the second principle comes into play: voluntary discomfort. The weak self gravitates toward what is easy, safe, pleasurable. It avoids challenge because challenge exposes vulnerability. And yet Stoics deliberately stepped into discomfort, knowing it was the forge where strength is hammered out. Seneca, the Roman philosopher and statesman, used to eat the simplest food possible for days at a time, dry bread, lukewarm water, to remind himself of his resilience. He asked himself a simple question: is this what I feared? What would happen if you asked that same question? If you took one of your deeply rooted fears or weaknesses and exposed it to the light? Imagine choosing to face what scares you, not recklessly or impulsively, but thoughtfully, deliberately. The weak self recoils at discomfort because it equates discomfort with danger. The strong Stoic self understands that discomfort is an ally, that hardship polishes the soul like friction polishes stone. So far, these principles, acceptance and voluntary discomfort, have been about removing the excuses that empower your weaker self. But what do you replace them with? This is where clarity of purpose becomes essential. Purpose often feels like a grand and unattainable idea, but Stoics believed it was as simple as identifying values. You are here to act virtuously, to contribute, to grow. Meditate on that for a moment. Those days when you feel lost or overwhelmed, it's not because life is inherently confusing, but because the weaker self thrives in the absence of purpose. To kill that version of yourself, you need to armor up with values strong enough to withstand temptation and distraction. When you wake up in the morning, do you ask yourself why you're getting out of bed? Or do you move through the day on autopilot? Marcus Aurelius began each morning reminding himself, "Your purpose is to engage with the world as a rational being." At dawn, when you have trouble getting out of bed, tell yourself, "I have to go to work as a human being. What do I have to complain of if I'm going to do what I was born for?" He knew, as we all know deep down, that a life absent of direction leaves space for weakness to fester. But purpose does not simply emerge like magic. It requires investment. Journaling, mindfulness, deep reflection, these are your tools for excavation. You must dig into your own values and peel away the layers of trivial wants and insecurities until you strike solid ground. What is your purpose? What do you stand for when all distractions are removed? The weaker self will try to derail this inquiry, whispering lies about what is realistic or practical. It will pull you toward conformity rather than fulfillment. But this is the crux of the matter. The weak version of yourself thrives when you hesitate. But with each moment of clarity, each small victory over distraction, this weak self fades into irrelevance. We cannot stop here, however. Accepting discomfort and crafting purpose are only pieces of the puzzle. This road, this journey toward strength, requires more. With every step, the weak self fights back, trying to regain control. And that fight, the fight to keep steering toward your best self, is one we'll explore further. Because the process of killing the weaker self is never a single event. It is a discipline, a practice, a relentless pursuit. And while the effort may be grueling, the reward, unshakable inner strength, is worth every ounce of struggle. The choice to rise. The weak version of yourself is no stranger. It's the voice that hesitates at the moment of action, the presence that flinches under pressure. It can be the critic that whispers, "You're not good enough," or the comforter that says, "Stay in your safe bubble. The world out there is too harsh." But here's the truth. As unyielding as the stone monuments of ancient Rome, that weak version was never meant to rule over your life. It was simply meant to exist, to challenge you, to test your resolve, and to serve as the scaffold for building your strongest self. Now you stand at the precipice. You've walked through parts 1 and 2 of this journey, recognizing your weaknesses, accepting responsibility for them, and beginning the process of killing that weaker self. But the final stage, the conclusion, isn't about blaming the past, lamenting missed opportunities, or giving in to despair. No, it's about the most vital aspect of Stoic philosophy: choice. Stoicism teaches us that we are not at the mercy of random events, emotions, or other people's expectations. Instead, we control our responses. Everything external, failure, humiliation, rejection, is neutral until we assign meaning to it. Seneca, one of Stoicism's greatest minds, reminds us that he who has his own approval need not seek the approval of others. With this concept, you have the power to confront your weak self and make a singular, life-defining decision. Are you ready to step forward, to rise above, and to choose the kind of person you will become? Imagine facing a mirror, not the polished, forgiving mirror in your bathroom, but the mirror of truth. It doesn't just show you how you look this morning. It reveals every neglected potential, every unresolved battle. You see your failures etched into your reflection, like scars you tried to hide. You see the habits formed over years of complacency. The jaded version of yourself stands there, staring back at you, unable to hide behind excuses because the mirror won't lie. This moment is not comfortable. It's not supposed to be. Because comfort, as the Stoics tell us, is often the breeding ground for mediocrity. But here's the miracle. This mirror doesn't judge. That scarred version of yourself isn't your end. It's your beginning. Stoicism invites you to see those imperfections not as defeats, but as lessons. Marcus Aurelius himself wrote, You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength. If you've spent years letting the weak version of yourself dictate the narrative of your life, then it's time to grab hold of the pen. What will you write next? Let's reimagine our metaphor. Killing this weaker self doesn't require a sword or violence. No, it's subtler and harder than that. The weak self is burned away every time you show discipline in the heat of distraction. It crumbles under the weight of your consistency. It dissolves at the edge of your courage. And though, like a shadow, it may linger, it will eventually lose its grip because you made the choice to act, no longer giving it permission to lead your life. But perhaps you're wondering, how do I know that I'm capable of this? How can I silence an inner voice that feels larger, louder, and stronger than I am? The answer lies in a single Stoic truth. You are capable because action builds capacity. By showing up every day, by confronting challenges you would have previously avoided, you strengthen the mechanisms of your soul. No transformation occurs without discomfort. Nothing worthwhile exists without discipline. You must struggle, not because it's easy or convenient, but because struggles shape the very best of you. Epictetus, the enslaved philosopher who climbed the ranks of intellectual greatness, believed that resilience is cultivated by adversity. When broken, rebuild yourself stronger. When told no, persist anyway. When filled with fear, act in defiance of it. Epictetus insisted, man is not worried by real problems so much as by his imagined anxieties about real problems. That weak version of yourself is an illusion, a combination of imagined fears, self-constructed barriers, and doubts you've clung to. Kill the illusion, and you kill its hold on you. Now take a minute and think about your life. Every missed opportunity, every relationship strained by your hesitations, every goal abandoned halfway. What would happen if you chose to pick up those broken pieces? What would happen if, instead of giving up, you gave yourself permission to try again? Stoicism doesn't promise success every time, but it guarantees one thing: freedom. When you take responsibility for who you are, weaknesses included, you grant yourself freedom from external blame, from shame, and from regret. You are the architect of your mind, and this weak version of yourself only stands because you gave it a foundation upon which to grow. Tear it down. Lay the foundation anew. Choose strength in moments of weakness, peace in the face of chaos, and resolve in moments of fear. The weak version of yourself will not disappear in an instant. No, it will lurk, waiting for moments of your vulnerability. It will try to regain control through temptation and ease. The fight for your stronger self isn't won in a single battle. It's a campaign, fought every day, moment by moment. The weak version will whisper that you don't have the energy today, or that persistence will only end in failure. But in your heart, you'll know this simple truth: you are stronger when you choose to be, and every moment is an opportunity to kill the weak self, one small act at a time. And one day, perhaps not soon, but inevitably, you'll reach a point where the weak version weakens. It will try desperately to claw for control, but you'll be too focused, too disciplined, too strong. It will shrink, powerless beneath the weight of your choices, and you'll finally recognize the person staring back at you in that mirror. Not the weak self, not the liar, the procrastinator, the cynic, but you. The fearless version of you, the version who acts in the face of fear, who embraces failure as a teacher, and who chooses courage over comfort. The version who follows the wisdom of Aurelius, Epictetus, Seneca, not by reciting their words, but by living them. Stoicism isn't about perfection. It's not about pretending that life doesn't hurt or claiming to be immune to doubt. It's about mastering your response. It's about choosing every day to kill the weak self, and in its place, building a life where strength, discipline, and peace reign. The weak self served its purpose. It challenged you, taught you, and pushed you to confront what lies within. But to live a life of excellence, you must bury it. The weak self is dead weight. Let it go. Today is the day to begin anew. Today is the day to rise. Today is the day to look in that mirror, nod at its reflection, and say, I am stronger than my fears, and I will prove it to myself, not with words, but with action. It's not too late to step forward. It's not too late to wield your choices like a sword, cutting away weakness piece by piece. Kill that weak version of yourself. Build who you were always meant to become. And remember, the power has always been yours.